Hey guys, it's Trevor with Peak Potential Physiotherapy and Wellness in here, coming live again to give you a little tip today. Wanted to talk a little bit about how to bend correctly. This is a higher level skill that we teach people, with anyone from lower back pain to hip or knee pain. So I'm going to teach you what's called the hip hinge. What the hip hinge is a basis of any kind of lifting technique, from squatting to bending forward to sitting in a chair. All of it starts with what's called the hip hinge. This is something that we teach people after we have gotten their back loosened up, their muscles loosened up, to allow them to do this correctly. We have lots of patients coming in all the time saying, well, I can't pick up my kids anymore, it hurts when I try to sit down, when I get up, those sorts of things. And teaching them, or teaching you this little technique should help you be able to do this more efficiently and with less pain. The problem is, if you can't do this correctly, is that there's a mechanical issue that we've talked about in the past, be it a disc, a nerve, or a joint, or even a muscle that's preventing you from doing that. If you're having pain when you do that, then we need to give us a call or shoot us an email or fill out an inquiry form. We can discuss that. So that's kind of my disclaimer. Well, to give you a little bit of background, my name is Trevor. I'm with Peak Potential Physiotherapy and Wellness. I've been a physical therapist and athletic trainer for over 10 years now. But this is the hip hinge, and how to bend correctly is the progression of what we have anyone with hip or lower back pain do. So first off is how to bend correctly. So again, this could be from going down to the floor correctly to pick something up, or to even sit back into a chair correctly. So we're going to go over how to do that. If you have questions, please leave them in the chat below, and I will get to those as we go along, or I will get to them afterwards. Okay? So the hip hinge is how to bend correctly without putting stress on your lower back. And this doesn't mean that you have to do this for every little thing that you do. So if you're picking up something small off the floor, it doesn't mean that you have to bend this correctly, bend this way every time you do something. The hope is as you continue doing this and practice this, is it becomes the new normal, and you won't have to think about it as much. So you could bend over incorrectly and not injure yourself. We just want you to be able to bend correctly when you are lifting something of any weight. Okay? So what you'll need to kind of test this out is, this is just a dowel rod, or actually it's the handle to our broom here in the clinic. But anything that's straight, it could be a golf club, it can be a umbrella, it can be any sort of straight stick. Okay, so I'm going to show you two different ways of bending, and then so you can see if there's a difference, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like with the dowel rod. So this is a external kind of cue on how to bend correctly. So just to show you first, if I'm bending over to pick something up, if I bend over like this, or if I bend over like that, they look pretty much the same. But when I put the dowel rod on my back, so what it should be doing is it should touch my tailbone, my shoulder blades, and my head. So I'm going to do the same two movements again to show you the difference. This is what I did first, and this is what I did second. So it doesn't look a whole lot different, but if you can see that the stick came off of my back, that's the difference. So what that does, it flexes your lower back and puts strain on it. So what we're trying to do is teach you how to keep a neutral spine. so that you can take the strain off of your back and put the pressure in your legs. So your glute muscles, your quads, your hamstrings, those are the biggest muscles of the body, and that's what you want to be able to use when you're going down to pick something up. Be it a case of water, be it your grandchild, be it your purse that might weigh too much. You want to bend over and keep the strain off of your back. So the setup is basically what we did, and you're taking the stick, making sure it's attached to your tailbone, to your mid-back, and to your head. Again, to bend over correctly, you keep all those points attached, and you're leaning over at your hips and coming back up. Now, I know you can't see my knees. My knees are what's called soft knees, so I'm not locked out, so my knees aren't completely straight. They're just slightly bent, and I'm hinging at the hips until I get a little pull on my hamstrings, and then I'm coming back up. And what you're going to do is just practice this movement. The things that I tell people is what you're trying to feel is when you go forward, your tailbone or your bottom goes the opposite way. So it's almost like a teeter-totter, or you're cantilevering yourself at your hips so that your spine stays straight. Something else you can think about for those in the right generation is, can you think about the drinking bird? So it's that perpetual motion machine where the bird goes forward and the little ball or his tail feathers go back. So when your head goes forward, your tail feathers or your bottom should go back. So if you think about drinking bird, that's another analogy you can think about when you're doing this. When my head goes forward, my tail feathers have to come up, and that takes the strain off my back. If I don't, and I bend here, that's going to flex my spine, and I feel strain on my back already. I get back in this position, and I'm able to take the strain off my back and feel it in my glutes and in my hamstrings without putting stress on my back. That is the premise of how to bend down correctly. So you would practice the hip hinge, what we just did, and then once you get that correctly, is then you can add that into a squat. The squat meaning that you'd bend your knees a little bit further and be able to pick something heavier up off the ground, or lift a child up off the ground without putting strain on your back. Okay? So analogies to think about when you're doing this are the drinking bird, or when you bend forward, your bottom has to go the opposite way, but keeping your spine in a neutral position when you're lifting anything of weight up so that it takes the strain off your lower back. Something else that goes in conjunction with this is being able to set your core muscles, which we haven't, I don't think I've done a tutorial on that yet, but if you just think about tightening your abdominals slightly, very slightly, so like you're tucking in your shirt, so you're drawing your lower part of your stomach in, or like you're trying to zip up a tight pair of pants, okay? And that'll activate the core abdominal muscles. I say this all with a grain of salt because if you've had any lower back pain, those core muscles don't turn on correctly. So this is a progression. Now, if someone just has some pain or feels a little uneasy when they're bending, the hip hinge is something you can try at home to see if you can turn on the right muscles and get into the right pattern so you don't hurt yourself, or that it doesn't hurt when you pick something up. Okay? If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, or shoot us an email, get on our website and send us a little inquiry, and we can go over there. So hip hinge, you think about keeping the dowel rod attached to your head, your shoulders, and your tailbone, bending at the hips so that you take the strain off your lower back. This is Trevor from Peak Potential Physiotherapy and Wellness, and I will be back next week to give you all a little bit more. If you have any specific questions that you want me to address, please leave them in the comments, put them on our Facebook page, and I will address those as well. But this is the hip hinge to take the strain off your lower back when you are trying to bend correctly. Now, again, that's also how to get up out of the chair correctly too. Sorry, I tend to go off on tangents when I'm teaching. But when you're bending or standing up, it's the same concept. You want to lean over so that your head is over your toes and you're coming up. So I'm still in that hip hinge position when I'm standing up and sitting down. And that will also take the strain off your lower back. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you.